Was Tony Soprano an effective leader during his tenure as head of the Soprano family? During Soprano's run on television, Tony Soprano was one of the most multifaceted characters ever put on screen. We started our journey following Tony when he was thrust into the position as head of the family during the start of their most trying times. Now, the point of this video will be to analyze if Tony made the right decisions during his tenure as boss of the family and overall led them to a better position than when he started. Starting in season 1, Tony had to deal with the impromptu decision of being made the head of the family, a position no one else wanted, so he had to take up the mantle. When looking at the overall situation of Tony being the head of the family, I think some leeway needs to be given because it was never expected of him. Jackie Aprile Sr. was always expected to be in charge. Tony was always groomed to be the second in command. It was only through Jackie Aprile Sr.'s unexpected demise was Tony given the position. When looking at other transitions of leadership that happened throughout the show, we are shown some transitions being seamless because of how expected they were. For example, when Johnny Sack died, it was already expected for Phil Leotard to take over. That's why the transition was so easy. Tony didn't have such luck. Tony and Junior's feud in season 1 showed why it's so important for an acting boss to name a successor. However, despite the rocky start, Tony did well resolving the conflict. However, one can't deny when looking at Tony's tenure, a lot of his success came through the sheer luck in the face of impending doom. The fact that he was able to survive the hit Junior and his mother ordered on him was pure luck, and it was just the first of many. Now, the first way to understand Tony's tenure as boss is to compare it to other bosses on the show's tenure. Our first comparison will be to Jackie Sr. While not much is known about Jackie Sr.'s time as boss, we can surmise he was well-liked and knew how to handle conflict pretty well, seeing how he was able to keep Junior in check. A problem Tony continuously had. Jackie Sr. commanded more respect even when he wasn't around, evidenced by the fact that no one really badmouthed him much when he wasn't there, unlike Tony, who was constantly ragged on behind his back for his decisions. In another video I made comparing The Godfather with Sopranos, one of the main distinctive aspects of both medias was how different Tony and Michael's demeanors were from one another. Michael was cool, calm, collected, while Tony is volatile, short-tempered, and erratic. The same could practically be said about the differences between Jackie Sr. and Tony's personality as well. Tony's volatile nature caused him and the family to go through a number of issues that probably wouldn't have happened had Jackie Sr. been in charge. While the war with New York probably would have happened no matter what because of the fact that Phil Leotard had zero respect for New Jersey, a lot of the tension leading up to it might not have happened had Tony been a better decision maker. Watching season 1 again, it felt like a complete culture shock in terms of how characters ended up turning out in later seasons. Tony's demeanor while Jackie was alive, even if he was in constant hospital care, was a lot more blissful. He seemed more content being second in command, which really suited him. He wasn't under constant scrutiny, and his volatile nature wasn't seen as much of an issue since he wasn't the one giving out the orders. A similar aspect about Johnny Sack and Tony's character that is really played up going into the later season is how much they both were better off as being the second in command rather than being number one. The stress of having the position changes both Johnny Sack and Tony for the worse. The best aspects of their character that got them the position in the first place is completely eroded after a while of them having the position. Being the head of a mob family means placating psychopaths, thieves, and murderers, and they're all constantly watching to see you mess up so they can take advantage of you. It's a stressful job that can weigh you down, and for the likes of Tony, who already has a history of mental health issues based off his upbringing, the position only exacerbated it. Still, with all that said, Tony was the best option to run the Soprano family, with Jackie Sr. being dead. As the show went on, I couldn't help but compare and contrast Tony's character to his peers, and each time I compared him, his character always came up looking better. Most of his subordinates were greedy, disloyal sycophants. While Tony at times did put his wants and needs above the family, he did lead them to their most prosperous era money-wise, and a lot of the decisions Tony had to make were justifiable under the circumstances he was put in. While being the boss of the family gave him a good amount of power, he still is just human like everyone else. A human that can fall victim to betrayal, unexpected circumstances, and things just not turning out right. What made The Sopranos such a great show was how multifaceted characters were. None of them fell in line because Tony was the boss. Like real life, they all had their own motivations for their actions, and sometimes that wouldn't always align with what Tony wants or even what's best for the family. Season 5, when Tony B went off the reservation and decided to do a hit for New York and then kill Phil Leotard's younger brother, that was a prime example of Tony and the family being thrown into a problem that he had no control of. There are only a couple number of problems that Tony could have handled better had someone else been in possession. There's only a couple of problems that Tony could have handled better had someone else been in position, and things might have went smoother. Tony's conflict with Richie probably would have never happened had Jackie Sr. been alive, considering that Jackie Sr. and Richie were brothers. Not to mention the undeniable amount of disrespect people who just got out of prison received when trying to re-implement themselves back within the family. Even though it's extremely common to end up being locked up, it should be lauded more that the person didn't snitch. Still, a lot of the Soprano families seem to take it for granted whenever one of the members came back from a stint. A huge problem that persisted through the series was how hard it is to integrate yourself back into mob life once you get out of prison. Tony had no sympathy for members who became back institutionalized. Tony B, Richie, and Feets went to prison over a long period of time, and since getting out, life has significantly passed them by. Mob life has changed significantly over the years, and a lot of the members had no patience for helping integrate returning members, which set a bad precedent, since more than likely most mafia members will end up going to prison if they don't end up dead. There was no sense of respect within the family, and it all started when Tony went over his uncle Jr. to gain position as boss. It's one of the reasons I found the final conflict New Jersey had with New York so satisfying, because of what it represented. Tradition versus modernity. Phil and New York were big on tradition. Just look at Phil Leotard, for example. He was able to move up the ranks despite having done a long stint in prison, unlike a number of Soprano members whose rise was stunted by going to jail. While Tony was able to make the Soprano family more successful than they ever had been, he also caused them to lose sight of the thing that separated them from common thugs, which was honor. So in conclusion, if one was to answer if Tony was successful at leading the Soprano family, it would depend on how you would define success. If your definition of success meant financially wise, then yes, Tony was an effective leader. But in terms of honor or just upholding the tenets of the old ways, then I would say Tony's tenure was a failure because he was constantly tested to uphold the mafia code of honor, and he constantly failed for a number of reasons, either because of greed, impulsiveness, or just simple apathy. No one could ask, what's the point? Now, one could ask, what's the point of upholding honor amongst thieves, murderers, and thugs? Well, that is a good question that I will answer in my next video.